My name is Benjamin ben Reuben. I'm a dove seller at the temple in Jerusalem. It's a business my family has been in for 3 generations. My father was a dove seller, as was my grandfather before him. And I'm just trying to understand what happened the other day. I'm trying to make sense of what Jesus of Nazareth did. My next door neighbor, he says, well, it's about time somebody did something about that corruption in Jerusalem. But as far as I'm concerned, what Jesus did was just plain crazy. And honestly, why make such a big deal here? It's Passover. Every faithful Jew in the region is expected by law to come to Jerusalem for the Passover. But Jews from all over the world come too. The place is a madhouse. You see, everyone who comes to the temple is required to pay a temple tax, and it must be paid in sanctuary shekels. Foreign coins are unclean. It may be okay to pay other debts with foreign coins, but the debt to God must be paid in coins that are blessed. Only temple shekels are pure enough for a temple tax. Jesus must know this. And how are people to pay their temple tax if they can't exchange the coins they bring from Rome and Egypt and Greece? This is the way it's always been. I'm sure Jesus knows that. In my opinion, he's being unreasonably judgmental and demanding. The money changers are, after all, providing a service, a much needed service. Of course, they charge a lot of money for this service, but that's to be expected, isn't it? I've heard people complain about what a hardship this is. I mean, most Jews are poor. Of course it's a hardship. But life is hard, and I don't make the rules, and I can't change the rules. If Jesus thinks he's going to storm in here and change the rules, he's got another thing coming. I've heard people complain that the temple is rich. They have millions of drachmas. Why do they need so much money? They have a point. But I'm no priest. I don't know what they do with all that money. I'm just a simple seller of doves, trying to make a living. I just do my job and I stay out of politics, and if Jesus knows what's good for him, he'll stay out of politics too. I've heard people complain that the money changers and the animal sellers are greedy, that they're ripping people off. But again, we're just trying to make a living. You can see that, can't you? Every Jew who comes to Jerusalem at Passover wants to offer a sacrifice to God, a thank offering or a sin offering. And as a dove seller in the temple court, I provide an easy way for them to do that. You may think it's a racket. I say it's just making the most of an opportunity. I mean, here's how it works. We have special sacrifice inspectors. And if an animal is brought in from the outside the temple, if that animal is impure in any way, it is unacceptable. And we all chip in to make sure the inspector will reject any animal from the outside, so they'll have to buy them here at the temple. And of course, any animal we sell will always pass inspection. Kind of a sweet deal, don't you think? Let's just say if you want to make it in this business, it's important to have a good working relationship with the right people. Now I realize that a pair of unblemished doves can be purchased for much less outside town. I charge 12 times as much or more. But every dove seller in the temple does the same. And our markup is not near as high as the sheep and cattle sellers at the temple. You have to remember how much trouble we spare all those pilgrims who come They don't have to transport any animals. It's not easy carrying animals around. Not having to bring animals all the way to the temple is worth something, isn't it? Maybe not as much as we charge, but like I said, I didn't invent this arrangement. I'm just working with it. I didn't create the system. I'm just trying to make the most out of it. There's nothing wrong with that, is there? It's not as if my big goal in life is to exploit poor people. I'm just here to make a living like everybody else. The temple is big business after all, and why shouldn't I get my cut? Jesus can rant and rave all he wants about how God's temple is supposed to be a house of prayer and not a public market. But can it be both? I mean, what's wrong with that? I had heard about him, but I hadn't heard he could be so angry. I tell you, that fanatic from Nazareth had a whip in his hand and was racing through the outer court of the temple, cracking that whip and shouting and turning the tables upside down. He was trying to clear out the money changers and all the other merchants, myself included. He yelled at us, insisting that we get our things out of the temple. I hope he's not like these prophets, like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Hosea, who think we should do away with sacrifices. But I fear he is. Let me tell you something. People like sacrifices. It's so much less trouble to sacrifice some poor animal to God than to sacrifice something more personal, like the way you're living or the grudge you're holding. In the long run, it's a lot less expensive to buy a couple of my dear doves than to change your life, for heaven's sake. Does Jesus think he's going to revolutionize the way we make amends with God? I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone so angry, though. My neighbor says it was passion, but make no mistake about it, it was anger. His rage was large enough for all of Jerusalem, and by now all of Jerusalem has heard about it. Who does he think he is, God? The man needs to get a grip or he's going to end up like the doves I sell. After the episode at the temple, some people confronted him. Not me. I try to stay out of the fray. I mind my own business. You mind your own business. That's what works for me. But some people took him on. They asked him how he can possibly justify his actions. We've all heard the rumors that he can perform miracles. Why, I even hear he can turn water into wine. Now that's a useful trick I'd like to see. So they asked him for a miracle as a way of proving he was really carrying out God's wishes and creating such a stir, causing such trouble at the temple. Well, he didn't do anything, but he had some big talk. I'll tell you, he said, you destroy this temple and I'll resurrect it in 3 days. What's that supposed to mean? Did he think we were going to knock down the temple just so he could prove that he could perform such a miracle? The truth is, I want Jesus and his judgments out of here. I want him to leave me alone. If he thinks he's going to get me to turn my life upside down, just like he did the tables of the money changers, he needs to think again. Could I be a better person? Of course I could. Could the temple be more like a house of prayer? Of course it could. Could the world use a few improvements? Well, you catch my meaning. I'm doing the best I can. Well, maybe I'm not doing the best I can. But I'm not a murderer. I'm not an adulterer. I cheat here and there a little. I guess I don't want to understand what Jesus was doing or what he meant with all that talk about the temple. I guess the truth is I don't want to change. And I don't have to change. I don't want to worry about being fair to the poor. I don't want to worry about corruption. I have enough worries all on my own. And if Jesus doesn't watch out, well, let's just say he's the one who should be worried. Keep your eye on him. He's a very demanding character, and he's in for trouble.